The map arrived on a day when the rain came down in sheets, a map drawn with ink that looked damp and strange, as if the lines themselves had learned to breathe. There was no return address, only a small note tucked in the corner. Follow the corridors that remember you. The envelope smelled faintly of rain and old paper, the way a library does just before closing time. Mara had spent a lifetime cataloging places that vanished, train stations that forgot to exist, houses that misplaced their doors. So a map to a forgotten house felt like a dare, whispered in a language she almost understood. She found the house at the edge of the cliff without fanfare. It stood there, stubborn against the ocean's loud voice, a slate-gray silhouette with a long memory for rain. The gate squealed a tired welcome as she pushed through. The air inside smelled of damp wood and old salt, the way seawater remembers its own name. A single lamp flickered in the hall, casting a pale amber glow that wavered as if the house itself breathed. The hall stretched longer than any corridor had a right to, the boards sighing under her boots. Rows of doors lined the walls, each door carved with a single word. Laugh quiet, dust breath, memory. The door frames wore a thin filigree of rust where the paint had learned patience. Mara did not knock. She opened the first door, marked memory. The room beyond held a sweetness and ache at once, the scent of something warm cooling too slowly. Old tea, a hint of lemon, and the drifting aftertaste of a child's giggle that wouldn't quite die. On a table lay a cup with a crack that followed the curvature of a handwriting-smeared edge. In the cup's reflection, Mara saw not her own face, but a version of herself she didn't recognize. A girl of perhaps 11 who looked back with the same mixture of curiosity and fear she carried now. She blinked, and the image remained, not hers to control, but hers to witness. The room shifted as she studied it, the laughter thickening into a memory she hadn't consciously chosen to revisit. Door after door revealed rooms that did not tell stories so much as reenact them. A kitchen where someone whispered a recipe she could not quite name. A study where rain tapped the window in a language she was just learning to read. A child's bedroom where the bedspan creaked in time with a heartbeat only she could hear. The house was not just old, it was patient, listening for her breath, watching the moment she hesitated, waiting for her to choose again. In the deepest hall, she found a door marked with a single harsh stroke, the word "the final." Beyond lay a staircase spiraling upward and downward at the same time, a paradox Mara had learned to fear when the houses she chased began to fold in on themselves. The landing opened into a room large enough to be a library, but the shelves did not hold books. They held doors, miniature, keyhole-shaped doors, standing like obelisks, each labeled with a date: 1912, 1954, 1987, 2025. On a desk rested a ledger, its pages faintly damp, the handwriting a familiar, careful script she did not recognize at first as her own. The ledger listed visitors who had come to the house, their names inked with a slight tremor, as if each entry feared being smudged by time. The most recent entry read, Mara, 2025, cartographer of things that vanish. Beside it lay a single key, warm as if it had been kept close to a body. Her fingers trembled as she touched the key in a small cabinet opened with a sigh. Inside, a glass sphere rested on a velvet cradle, swirling with a miniature city, streets too tiny to stand in, people who moved with deliberate quiet, as if each action had to be perfect to avoid waking something dangerous. The label on the cradle read, Entropy Engine. The room grew still as the house held its breath, and Mara saw the truth she hadn't admitted to herself. The rooms did not exist to tell stories she forgot. They existed to collect them, to distill memory into something that could not be erased. The houses she had chased did not vanish. They were archived, their doors given to those who would unlock them. And Mara, wise enough to recognize a pattern when it thrummed under her fingertips, realized that the final door was not an exit, but an invitation to become part of the archive. The glass sphere glowed, slick with a light that felt like memory pouring through her veins. The house's voice, old as driftwood, spoke from somewhere inside the walls. You came to remember. You will be remembered. She closed her eyes, not to flee, but to listen. When she opened them again, the room had changed color as if the coastline had shifted and the sky learned a new shade of gray. The sphere's light settled into her palms, warm and certain, and the ledger's pages fluttered as if a breeze wandered through a vault of secrets. The door to the hall labeled memory stood ajar. One step, then another, and the corridor's doors began to blur. The house exhaled, and Mara's breath joined it. She realized she had not entered a place to discover a truth. She had entered a space to become one. And somewhere behind the walls, the old lamp winked out, leaving the cliff in a patient, seawater hush.